Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. The final week of January is here. So is the latest podcast, taking inventory on all that's happening in the world of sports, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard. And for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, even as early as this past Thursday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And I have to put out a quick disclaimer because if you hear a little bit of hissing in the background, it is not my microphone, it is not my audio setup. Because I'm not at the sports desk today, I'm actually recording in the bedroom, so therefore you hear the heat in the background. And the thing is, it's already past 12:30. I didn't want to have this posted by the time we get to the eve of Super Bowl 60, and I wanted to make sure that I get it out to you as quick as possibly can. And with the heat, who knows? It can go 45 minutes and go an hour. And obviously, between posting and other stuff I have to do the rest of this afternoon into the evening, I wanted to make sure that I put forth this apology early on, just so if you're wondering, hey, JAYREELZ, what the hell's going on in the background? Why is it hissing? Is that your microphone? Is that whatever else is going on in your apartment? No, unfortunately, that is the radiator. And I'm grateful because obviously after a snowstorm, which hit, I guess, I don't know, anywhere between 8 to 12 inches in New York City, and on top of it being, I guess, I don't know, 20 some odd degrees with a wind chill in the teens or single digits. Although I went outside earlier and it felt great. So, and this is someone who does not like the cold, but of course I've warmed up to it, if that makes any sense. But let me stop with all the drivel. I just needed to put that out there because if you do hear that in the background throughout the course of this podcast, I'm sincerely sorry. And if this is your first time here, trust me, this is normally not the case. Only because if you're watching on Spotify or even YouTube, you can see the background is just a blank wall, as opposed to when I'm at the sports desk, there's a little bit of a better background, and you can tell that I'm in the friendly confines of my apartment when I do so. But with that being said, let's just jump right to it. So one last apology, and let's move on. Now that we have a Super Bowl 60 set, Santa Clara, 2 weeks from yesterday, obviously we have to rewind and talk about what happened there in both Denver and Seattle. And just to give you a quick overview of the games yesterday, I mean, let's face it, they fell short despite the fact that a lot of people were snowed in from the Midwest to the Northeast, and I'm sure the rating was through the roof. But when you talk about the quality of the two games, obviously the second game was better than the first, and even with the snow and the elements in Denver, which made it for a beautiful setting to watch on TV, it certainly did not display on the field because it was just, I don't want to say it's a bad football game, but it was less than desirable. Let's call it that way. And even though that the Broncos had the break of all time when they had the punt, which landed in the Patriot 33-yard line down 10-7, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, this is where we're going to tie the game, and now we'll wait to see what's going to happen after that. But of course, and I'll break it down, and I'll get into that. So to go off on the first game, listen, to me, this was a late Christmas gift, and it fell on January 25th, so it was just exactly a month after Christmas, to where Sean Payton, his fastball went from about 95 to 85 in a matter of one game. And I don't want to put this to the extent where I'm not going to give the Patriots any credit or not give them their due. They earned the right to get to Santa Clara to represent the AFC. But man, Sean Payton, that was a disaster class in coaching yesterday. And I'm sure his mentor, Bill Parcells, somewhere, whether it be in South Jersey or maybe even South Florida for all I know, if he was sipping on a Heineken, I'm sure he spit it right out, because what you saw there yesterday was just a god-awful display of coaching. And I don't know if he's getting roasted today, and if he's not, I'll be the one to do so. Here's a guy that's won a Super Bowl, and I understand he got robbed of another one there with the pass interference against the Rams there down in the Big Easy when he was the coach of the Saints. But he does have, I was going to say Spygate, he does have Bountygate on his shoulders, to where he obviously missed a year as a coach. And for whatever the reason, yesterday, I don't know what in the hell he was thinking, but let's get to it. Obviously, the Broncos got off to that slow start, but then that 3rd and 10, which looked like it was going to be the trajectory where Jarrett Stidham and all of Bronco Nation was hoping, that long pass there, what was it, 53 yards, and he only threw for 113 yards in the game, so it just goes to show you. But for whatever that was, and remember the conditions, it was sunny, it was chilly, but obviously not a snowflake to be found. But he did throw that big 53-yard pass, and that led to the touchdown to Cortland Sutton in the back of the end zone. and you thought 7-0, okay, great, this is what you want to see. You want to see the Broncos out in front. Patriots are going to have to come from behind. I understand it's 7-0, it's a one-score game, but still. So now as the game goes on, and he was actually playing very well up until this point. And this is where Sean Payton gets put on the griddle right off the bat. Team is marching down the field, doing what they have to do. Obviously, they're in field goal range to the point where they're inside the red. Now they get to a point where it's 4th and 1 at the Patriot 14-yard line. First guess, kick a field goal. Because not knowing that there was a snowstorm headed that way at Empower Field at Mile High, but I thought, you know what, don't get cute. It's not as if you have John Elway or even Drew Brees for that matter, or of course his current coach, Bo Nix, who's sidelined with that ankle injury. If it was Bo Nix, maybe, just maybe, I'd say, you know what, you could go for it. But Jarrett Stidham is your quarterback. And maybe because he had played well throughout that stretch from that long pass up until that point, he probably thought, oh, well, you know what? Stidham's going to have a great afternoon. I'm going to continue to see what I could do to at least move the chains and maybe get into the end zone. And I get it that in this day and age, you're going to look at the analytics sheet and say you're going to have to go for it. But you know what? You're up 7-0. You get the points there at 10-0, and away you go. And I don't want to hear from the fans out there, whether they're Patriot fans, NFL fans, etc., who say, well, Will Lutz missed 2 field goals. That was after where they would have an opportunity to make it 10-0. So yes, did he miss 2 field goals? Of course. But at the same time, you can't look at the game that way. You got to rewind and go back to that point where Sean Payton, if he kicked a field goal there, and that would have been what? At the 14-yard line, it would have been a 31-yarder. If Lutz can't make that one, then forget about it. The other 2 that he missed were from 46, and the other one I believe was from what? Let me pull this up here real quick. The other one I think was from 54, if I'm not mistaken. Lutz. We understand that the one that was deflected, the first one was from 54 yards. And obviously it was windy, and that was before the snow. I believe that was right before halftime, but still, that is no way that you could even think that, oh, you got to put that all on the shoulders of your place kicker. To me, that is Sean Payton, and that was just egregious, number one. Then as it was, later in the half, you looked at the play that Stidham, as he's getting flushed out of the pocket, and absolutely was just panicked at that point where he just threw the ball away, and it actually was a fumble. Now, at first, it was called an intentional grounding, and to me, they got away with one there. I thought the Broncos, but then when they revisited it again, I believe with Mike Vrabel screaming from the sidelines, isn't that a fumble? And it was. You didn't even hear a whistle, and I tried to make sure to hear for a whistle or listen out for one. And as it was, that wasn't the case where it should have been a touchdown, but because they changed the call there, and it was a situation where the Patriots were able to get the ball, wherever it was, the Patriot or I want to say maybe the Bronco 11 or whatever it was. So then Drake May runs into the end zone to get the game-time score, and that's when you thought to yourself, that was just a terrible play by the starting quarterback. He just sort of threw it away and just taking the grounding as opposed to him trying to do whatever it was. The ball just slipped out of his hand. He tried to do a bounce pass a la NBA style, and that's going to come back later here when I dissect this Bronco offense. But now it's a 7-7 game, and you come out of the half where the Patriots go 9.5 minutes down the field, including a crucial 4th and 1 where, and I get it, that was a smart play to go for it. The snow was starting to really take its shape and obviously had a big-time effect in the second half of that game. But for that 4th and 1, and even with Sean Payton throwing the challenge flag, and that was the one thing that he had to do, because based on the overhead angle, the camera, that where you see the gesture made by Payton, as I'm doing it here on video, to where they wanted to make sure that the officials got the overhead look, and to me, it didn't look like he got the first down there. And they gave him the first down, and also something that Tony Romo said, which I got to give him credit for, and he was awful in the game. I mean, every down is huge. Every play is huge. He came out with one comment, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot what it was off the top of my head, but we all know Tony Romo is not a good color commentator, and he makes $18 million a year, and I'm here at home dissecting the game myself, and I said, you know what, Tony, for half the money, you might as well have me in there, and I can do a 10 times better job. And I don't care if he played quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care how much experience, etc. Please, I watch the game, I see what's happening, and I wouldn't say half the things that he's saying as a color commentator. So now that I got that out of the way, but he was right by saying that maybe they should have gone to the sticks there, and we understand that they've done away with the sticks because of the measurement there, because of the arrow that's pointing, and obviously that's going to take more time. They pretty much did that to cut out the extra couple of minutes, but that's a critical play right there. you know what? It wouldn't hurt to bring out the chains right there to see whether or not he earned that first down. And as it was, the one judge from the top of the screen came down and he spotted the ball short, where the other judge coming from the left sideline looked like he was actually closer to getting the first down or probably at the first down marker. Bring out the chains. Why not? That was a critical play because that led to the field goal there, which made it 10-7. And then as the game moved along, here was the scenario where at, 10-7, late in the fourth quarter, where the Patriots had the punt, and then that's when the punter kicked it out of bounds. It was at the Patriot 33-yard line. You're thinking, oh, geez. All they really needed was a first down there, and they couldn't even muster that up. So now they had to settle for a 44-yarder, which you thought maybe even in the elements, it's not a terrible kick, but we know it's windy. We know Borealis missed one from, he kicked that one from 23. I think that was 46 that he missed from. And it was a scenario where you were only hoping, if you were a Bronco fan and even an NFL fan, because you wanted to see the game tied and kind of see how it was going to play out from there. Because if he missed that field goal, to me, there was no way the Broncos were going to win that game. And then as it was, he missed a field goal thanks to a deflection there by the defensive lineman. And even though it just sailed wide left, but you got to wonder, his play probably was the difference of that ball either going through the uprights or missing it there by, probably a couple of feet. But even with all that being said, the Broncos still had one more shot because Drake May, who did great with his legs, did nothing with his arm. And I understand that it got a little bit hairy there with the weather in the second half, but I've watched him throughout the playoffs. And a lot of the balls that he throws, yeah, I understand the Diggs touchdown that he had. He zipped it in there. But it's weird. He throws a lot of, and he's great with the touch pass. I got to give it up. But a lot of his passes are soft. I mean, they're just right in there. It makes you think as a defensive back, like, hey, you can't swat that away. You can't get there, the timing of it at all. But for Drake May, who won the game with his legs, I mean, let's face it, and here it was in a scenario where the Broncos now had the ball back. It was north of the 2-minute warning. And on first down, I believe that Jarrett Stidham wanted to go long there to Marvin Mims, but instead he went short. And he actually, this is where he did the chest pass. It looked like he was in the NBA for a second, where he just should have thrown it away. I understand he may have gotten half a yard on that, but to me, that just let the clock keep running. And although the Broncos had one timeout left, and that was a situation where right before the warning, what in the hell is Sean Payton, I was about to say Peyton Manning. What is Sean Payton doing? Wanting to go back to the well to a long bomb in that weather, and I understand he had the wind to his back, but what is he doing there? Can you do a 5-yard out? Can you get to a point where you can methodically go down the field? And I get it, maybe the Patriots weren't given that much in the middle of the field, so that's where you got to go out. That's where you got to go with a bubble screen, whatever it is. That is not the conditions to try to go long there when he was successful in the first half. Again, sunshine, all right, the wind, but certainly the inclement weather had just got a 180 to think that, let me just throw another bomb here and let's see if we could get deep into Patriot territory to set us up for a game-time field goal. That was an atrocious play call. What are you doing there? And that's all on Payton. And I understand he's bemoaning the fact about the 4th and 1. Oh, I regret it. That was a terrible play call, whatever, and I'm paraphrasing. But what about that bomb where Christian Gonzalez, I could have caught that pass. And that was the game. And Sean Payton, I don't know. Has the game passed you by? I get it that they were a 1 seed this year, under Bo Nix, of course. And here it was with Jarrett Stidham, who had a great, from that one play up until that 4th and 1, which wasn't his fault. He did not have a good game. They had one first down in the second half and 33 yards total. And you can talk about the weather all you want. And I understand, but the game plan should have been adjusted to where, all right, how do we get down the field? What are the Patriots going to give us defensively? All right, we don't have the middle of the field. Marvin Mims, could we go in out, considering they were playing man-to-man? And there was a bit of a cushion there on Mims there in that opening play before he went past him. I mean, it was just a terrible job. And I understand he got snippy there in the postgame with one of the writers. I forgot the terminology that the writer had brought up there with the questioning. And I mean, it's just terrible. And yeah, he was just bitter. Oh, I guess you know more football than I do. Well, I got news for you there, Sean Payton. You certainly know a hell of a lot more football than I do. But what in the hell was that play call on 4th and 1? And then what in the hell was that play call on 2nd and 10 trying to go long in a blizzard? I mean, seriously? If that was John Elway, maybe if that was John Elway. But Jarrett Stidham is not. So I got news for you. If you're a Bronco fan, you got to be sick to your stomach. And to me, this is an all on Stidham. You kind of expected Stidham to play this way. He did have his moments, though, what was that, midway or late first quarter till about that play about 9 minutes ago in the second quarter, because after that, he was a non-factor. All right, and a lot of that you could attribute to your head coach. But I have to give the Patriots a little bit of shine. Here they are going back to another Super Bowl. And I don't know, they didn't really do anything in particular coaching-wise. Maybe defensively, I think that Sean Payton somewhat gift-wrapped. I don't even say somewhat. He gift-wrapped that game with those two plays, because who knows, at 10-0, are the Patriots going to press there? Who knows? Does Jarrett Stidham, instead of throwing it away, does he not fumble the ball there and give it up to where they had an easy score? And those are the breaks. That's what happens there in big-time pressure football. But how I look at it is that, to me, this falls on the shoulders of Sean Payton, and he's going to have to live with this until at least training camp, because he squandered a good opportunity. And let's face it, I think it's better for the Patriots to be in the Super Bowl, as much as I do not want to see him there. But could you imagine Jarrett Stidham in a Super Bowl, considering how he played there yesterday? And I understand the weather, but still, absolutely not. So that's what you have there with that game. And I understand that Peyton's trying to play hero ball and try to get a home run play, but come on. You got to be smarter than that. That was a rookie head coach mistake on both fronts. Not only going for it on 4th and 1 at the 14, that was Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson-esque. And then on top of that, to actually go for a bomb there where it looked like he was going to go the same way on first down. You just can't make it up. So, and the Patriots, again, here it is. The turnover, 4-13 under Gerard Mayo, and then now they're going back to a Super Bowl. And I'm going to say this right now. Please, to the football gods, and not because if they win, they'll have 7 Super Bowls, one more than the Steelers, but I've seen enough Patriots Super Bowl wins. I've seen enough. I don't want to see any more. Hopefully this will be Drake May, Dan Marino. Marino's second year, went to the Super Bowl and never went back. Drake May, Super Bowl second year, and doesn't go back. That's all I got to say about that. But hey, listen, they were resourceful, led by their head coach, and yes, I got to throw them some flowers. This wasn't all on, as much as it was on the shoulders of Sean Payton, but obviously Drake May on that 3rd and 6 bootleg, great call, and he was able to get that first down to win the game. And again, he did nothing with his arm. What do you have, 83 yards passing in the game? And obviously did a lot with his legs, so kudos to the Patriots as we move it along. Now, as far as the nightcap, I'll say this. It was a good game, but it wasn't a great game. It wasn't a thriller, as I've seen here in some of these websites, and obviously the leader of the Worldwide Sports Network, whatever. Good game. Here's where it turned. 2 plays. 13-10. Think about this. 13-10 with 1:55 to go after the Rams punched it into the end zone on the Kyron Williams little screen there, wide open. And you thought to yourself, wow, the Rams are going to go in at the half up by 3 with the Seahawks getting the ball to start the second half. So as it was, you had a scenario where the Seahawks had the ball. They went 3 and out after a run and then 2 incompletions. And then the Rams had the ball, and it was pretty much the same formula. So therefore, the Seahawks were able to get the ball back with, I believe, about 55 seconds to go. And then you had the big pass play, Sam Darnold to JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, which set them up pretty much right at around the red zone. And then a couple plays later, he finds JSN, touchdown, 17-13. That was key play number 1. And then the key play number 2, after the Seahawks get the ball, they go 3 and out. And then the Rams couldn't do anything with that because what happened? Punt. And Xavier White, for whatever the reason, almost fumbled the punt earlier in the game. He goes back out there, and as he's falling back, tries to catch the ball. If I was him falling back, I would try to roll, do whatever it takes to get out of the way of the ball. But, of course, it hits his shoulder pad. Seahawks recover. Next thing you know, they're in the end zone, 24-13. And I can't say that was the game, but that certainly turned things around. From a gift-wrapped or just a break of all time, I should say, to have the Seahawks get the ball after the Rams looked like I don't even know if that was a 3 and out on that first series. Maybe it wasn't a 3 and out, but as it was, the Seahawks had the punt after getting the ball in the second half, and then the muff punt, that set it up, 24-13. Now the Rams did respond with the touchdown there and a great catch by Puka Nacua. After that, that's when they traded scores. Then the Seahawks went up 31-20. Then the Rams answered back 31-27 late third quarter, and then it was going to be a shootout. You would have thought that who's going to get the ball last could probably win the game. And that was the scoring there at the end of the third quarter. Now you get into the fourth quarter after a couple of exchanges, but then now the Rams, 14 plays, 84 yards, and they were in 4-down territory. They had to go for it on 4th and 1, which they did get. It was around the Seahawks 21-yard line. And then now they are within goal-to-goal distance. And I believe it was, 4th and 4 from the 6, where if they got to the 2-yard line, they would be able to get a first down. But they had a couple of incompletions there, including the one in the end zone, where I know Stafford tried to squeeze it in. And Stafford played great in the game. But Sam Darnold played better. And I even said it, even if Matthew Stafford was subpar, they would be able to win because they needed Sam Darnold to be superhuman. And guess what? He was that and then some. And all you could do is just chalk it up to Sam Darnold putting up equivalent, if not better numbers than Matthew Stafford. He matched him in touchdowns with 3, had a little bit more yardage, and his percentage as far as completion was just as good, if not better. And this is why the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. And then I understand on the final drive there, or right before the Rams got the punt there with about 20 seconds to go, but you knew that was a long shot. But you had that controversial 3rd down, and I understand there could have been an interference there a couple of plays prior to that. But on the 3rd and 7, where Cooper Kupp caught the ball, and to me, although it was a catch, and you probably could have argued an incomplete, although he caught it, rolled, he made a football play, but the ball popped out, and I'm sure there were a lot of people thinking, oh, is it a catch, is it a catch, is it a catch? But I thought his knee was down before he got to the first down marker, and it was close. And at that point, I don't think, maybe he had one more timeout. I don't know if, and I think they got the video assist, that's what it was. It was about 3 minutes ago. With the video assist, that's where Sean McVay went over to say, hey, instead of having to get a timeout charge, can we get to see whether or not the spot of the foul, or if it was an incomplete. I kind of forgot at this very moment. But to me, I thought it was more of a spot where it could have been a 4th and 1, and that would have been interesting because I think that they would have punted the ball. You can't fool around there knowing that the Rams would have the ball in a short field, but as it was a first down. It was a completed catch, but I understand. We could look at the Isaiah Likely play. We could look at a million plays on whether or not. And it looked like he did make a football move, although the ball did pop out there at the end. But the Seahawks prevail, and they go on to face the Patriots in a rematch of Super Bowl 49 11 years ago. Now, as far as the scenario regarding the Rams, is this the end for Matthew Stafford? Right now, I can't tell you. How do I know? And based on what he said in the postgame, hey, it's way too fresh. We just lost this game. Obviously, he's going to talk it over with his family. I would think he comes back. He does have one more year on his contract. And I would think, as much as he talked about how he loved the guys, he loved this group, the fight, the grit, etc., and the same for Sean McVay for that matter, I would think he'd come back for one more year, run it back, and see what they could do to get back to the same position they were, hopefully in their building, to get back to and win a Super Bowl. So, and the Rams will be back. I mean, their defense is young. Their defense is good, although, listen, they gave up a ton of yards there, and they gave up that miraculous play the week before to Caleb Williams. But I think they do have a good young nucleus there. Their offense, obviously a little bit older in the tooth, especially at the skill positions, the quarterback, Devontae Adams. I know their running backs are young, and you have Puka Nacua there. But the Rams, I think they'll be fine moving forward into next year. And as far as Seattle goes, is it time to lift the label off of Sam Darnold of him not being a winning quarterback? I get it that you look at the end of last year in a Viking uniform where he lost the final game to Detroit and had a putrid effort against the Rams in the playoff game. Well, now he's exercised those demons by winning that regular season game on a Thursday night and then yesterday matching and surpassing Matthew Stafford. Now, for everything that his head coach has said, oh, everybody's got to shut up now. They can't say anything about Sam Darnold. You can say that for now. But he has to positively seal the deal. He's got to win in 2 weeks. Because if he has a bad game there in Santa Clara a week from this coming Sunday, everybody's going to forget about the NFC Championship game. Forget it. So if he has a 1-touchdown, 3-interception nightmare performance and they lose 25 or 24-14, again, the NFC Championship game will be a distant memory. And I'm pulling for Sam Darnold. I mean, how could you not? Here's a guy, Jets, bounced around everywhere from Carolina to San Francisco to Minnesota, and now he's found a home here in Seattle, and in his first year there, he goes to a Super Bowl. And he's played lights out, and he's won more games in this 2-year span than any quarterback has. And I get it with the 17-game season, and, well, still, you got to give it up. And you know what? I may not be 100% sold, but I got to give him his due. I got to throw him bouquets. The guy in the biggest game of his career, and that's why he's got to seal the deal in the next game, because in the biggest game of his career, he came up not big, large. But here's the crazy thing. He's going to have to come up larger in the next game against the Seahawks. And I'm not going to get to breaking down the game or storylines. You're going to have to wait till next Thursday's podcast for me to do that. But here's a couple of things to chew on that you're going to be just sick and tired of hearing. Two things. Obviously, the Seahawks are a favorite. I believe they're 4.5 based on Vegas and what they feel that the Seahawks, and they're, listen, rightfully so. Second-year quarterback. I understand this is the super deep end of the pool for Sam Darnold, but he's shown that he could deliver here, as we saw there yesterday in Seattle. But you're going to hear a lot about, granted that the players are long gone, the coaches, but you're going to hear a lot about why Marshawn Lynch didn't get the ball and Malcolm Butler and the play that blew the Super Bowl for the Seahawks. So you're going to get a lot of that, a lot of the rematch stuff. You're going to get a lot of the why not us from the Patriots, because everybody's picking Seattle, and including yours truly. Partially because I can't stand the Patriots. I've seen enough Super Bowl victories to last me 60 lifetimes. I don't want to see them win again. And on top of that, by them winning the next Super Bowl, they have the most in the history of the Super Bowl, which will eclipse what the Steelers, and they're both tied, of course, Patriots and Steelers. So I don't want to see that. And that's the early storyline there as far as what I'm seeing from afar. But as far as the game and anything else, we will talk about that as we have 2 weeks to chew on that. And away we go. Now, some news as far as coaches go. I got to start off with Mike McCarthy. Saturday, I was at a content creator networking event. Thanks to WFAN's Keith McPherson, my guy. Much love to him and everybody that came out in the West Village to brave the temperatures that were in the single digits there on Saturday. But when the news came down, was I surprised? No. Was it the right choice? And this is where a lot of Steel fans are up in arms. And what am I going to do? Am I going to be so pissed off to think, I can't believe Mike McCarthy, this, that, and the third? I'm not surprised. And I'm actually more surprised by the Rooneys not choosing whether it be Anthony Weaver, I believe Chris Shula, I don't even know if he got interviewed, to be honest, Brian Flores, who was interviewed, amongst the likes of a couple of others. And to think that Mike McCarthy, who is a Pittsburgh native, has roots there, and I believe still has roots there. If you watch the Sunday night game in the 2024 season when Dallas played in Pittsburgh and he went out to eat and had his former teammates come out there, Dak Prescott, etc., visiting family. So yeah, it is a homecoming, and that's fantastic if you're sentimental. But here's the thing. Who's the quarterback of this team? Is it going to be Will Howard? Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? I'd really doubt that. I don't want to go back to how frosty the relationship, based on what we heard from before McCarthy got jettisoned there before the end of the season. What was that, 4 or 5 years ago? And yeah, he didn't even make it through the rest of the regular season. Got fired, so I don't know if there was a disconnect between Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. Who knows? But to me, this was not the right choice. I believe this was the safe choice. Because of where he's from, because he's back home, and I'm sure he wants to see this through. The hometown team, the team I believe he rooted for as a kid, 62 years of age. They didn't go the route of the 34-year-old, a la Mike Tomlin, and even Bill Cowher of yesteryear. And Chuck Noll was 38 when he got the job, way back when in 1969. Now, do I like the hire? I'll say I'm not in love with it. I don't dislike it, but I'm not in love with it. I thought they would go defense. I thought they would go Chris Shula, even Brian Flores. That was the guy I predicted and would have been my choice. But what are you going to do? Now, the Rooneys, a lot of the fan base is just outraged to know that, oh, what are they doing? This is just a Mike Tomlin light. He's not going to do much. He's not going to do this, not going to do that. All right, that may be true, but we need a quarterback. That's all there is. We need a quarterback. And is that quarterback on the roster right now? I would say it probably isn't. It's not Mason Rudolph. It's not Will Howard. It certainly isn't Aaron Rodgers. He's a free agent, so he's not a part of the 40-man or 53-man right now. I got baseball in the brain for whatever the reason. But, yeah, again, not in love with it. Not surprised. But it is what it is. I don't know what else to say about it. I really don't. And again, if you tell me who the quarterback is, then I'll warm up to whether or not that will be a match made in heaven. I will say this. I hope it's not Aaron Rodgers. I really don't. Aaron Rodgers, thank you for the year. You got us to the playoffs. The 2 big wins against Baltimore this year, especially the Sunday night 3 weeks ago. Fantastic. That's it. That's all. He'll be 43 by the time he gets to next December. I've seen it. I've seen enough. And then Phillip Rivers withdrew his name from the Buffalo Bills head coaching job. And I don't know what the GM, or now the president, Brandon Beane, and Terry Pegula, really, what in their minds think that Phillip Rivers is even an iota of their brain trust to think that he was going to be obviously the next coach of the Buffalo Bills. What? Does Josh Allen love Phillip Rivers that much that he thought, hey, maybe we could bring him in? And Rivers was the one that withdrew, so it's not as if the Terry Pegula, the owner, or Brandon Beane, the president, said, you know what, hey, we passed. We thought it wasn't a smart idea. Maybe the fan base was just irate to think that, wait a minute, you're going to bring Phillip Rivers here? And they said, oh, let's back off on that. And then maybe Phillip Rivers said, you know what, I'm not going to do that, etc. So, yeah, thankfully, that was a no-go by the former Charger and even Colt quarterback who was brought out from the football dead, I'll say, to play quarterback here for the Colts as their season went up in smoke. All right, people, I'm going to move it along to the NBA. That's all I got for the football. Now, I'm going to touch on the basketball as I lace up the high tops. I'll get into the college in the coming weeks. I know Rick Pitino just won his 900th game in his career as they beat Xavier there on Saturday, so congratulations to him, St. John's, etc. But I will get into the college football more so maybe when we get to Thursday's podcast, but obviously when we get to next week and beyond, because as with all the NFL and everything that's happening off the field with the coaches and obviously chronicling these games, and even with the baseball, as we saw a lot of activity here over the last couple of weeks, college basketball has not really been on my radar. Have I been paying attention? Yeah, I have. I know who's number one. I know who's been up and down, who's been flirting with the top 4 spots. If I had to pick who it would be, if the bracket were to come out today, who would be your top 4 teams? I can get into all that, but I'm going to save it until we get to Thursday and beyond, because we have a lot of time to get into the NCAA basketball, which will really pick up once you get to the latter part of February into conference tournament play and obviously the tournament there in the middle of March. So plenty of time to chew on that. But as far as the NBA goes, really the only newsworthy items that you have here, with Giannis getting hurt, straining a calf muscle, he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And with the trade deadline a week from Friday, does he get dealt? And with all of the thumbs down to the home crowd there a couple of weeks ago, and whether or not that this is going to gain any traction, the teams that are going to look to procure the franchise star, listen, if I was a team, is he worth the risk? He obviously is, but he's had calf injuries before. I don't know if it's the same one that he had last year, if you recall, or maybe it was the year prior to that, because remember, they missed it was last year where he missed some time, and of course Damian Lillard missed some time too in that first round loss to Indiana. This was 2 years ago, and of course they lost to them last year, as we know, and that's where Damian Lillard was out, and Giannis, although did play, but that's a big risk. I don't know if I'm willing to trade a boatload of number 1 picks to bring in Giannis if his calf isn't going to be fully healed. Now, granted, there's still plenty of season to be played. It just passed the halfway point of the year. But I don't know. To me, it's almost a buyer beware. When he's healthy, we know he's a wrecking ball, but yeah, it's a calf injury. God forbid it blows up into something bigger than that, as we saw with Kevin Durant and as we've seen with these recent rash of Achilles injuries, that if the calf somehow really gives way to that Achilles, forget it. You're going to trade for a guy that is right now, I believe, 31 years of age, and I get it. KD was 32 when his Achilles blew, and he still had a lot more productive years after that. But I don't know if you want to mortgage the farm, mortgage your draft capital, and just say, to hell with it, we'll bring Giannis in, and if he somehow, some way happens to get injured, and it's a severe one at that, you're going to be ruined the day that you parted with those number 1 picks and just held out for a better deal, or let's say for future first rounders coming your way. And also the same can be said about John Morant, because he has a sprained UCL ligament in his elbow, which I believe is going to be 3 weeks, and we know the trade deadline is forthcoming, but I don't know whether or not you want to trade for the attitude, the off-the-court stuff, him not staying healthy on top of that. And even though recently he said he's a loyal guy, he wants to stay in Memphis, but the higher-ups may think otherwise, where if they get a Godfather offer to say, you know what, hey, we have to trade him, they're going to do what's right for business, despite the fact that he is a two-time All-Star and he is a face of the franchise, although that has waned big time here over the last couple of years. But I'm sure there may be a team out there that's going to say, you know what, let's roll the dice, bring him in. We'll make sure to get the proper people around him, that he gets the care, the mental health outside the court, whether that means a round-the-clock, maybe not round-the-clock, but a psychotherapist or someone that could really be at his beck and call to voice and express his feelings, his mental health, etc. Maybe they are doing that in Memphis, but it certainly hasn't worked considering how he's performed here, especially off the court. But that is one that we'll keep an eye on, not only with Giannis, but even with John Morant there, where we get to next Friday. And then Jonathan Kuminga, boy, I tell you, with that scenario in Golden State to where he requested a trade and then Jimmy Butler tears a knee where he's done for the year. Now they got to bring Kuminga back into the fold, and now he suffers a knee injury. Now, it's not to the extent of Jimmy Butler, but you have to wonder whether or not, if it's going to be a situation where he's on the shelf 2 to 4 weeks, 4 to 6 and beyond, because he's looking to get traded as well. And although Kuminga is 2 notches below the aforementioned Giannis and John Morant, but that's a guy where I'm sure a lot of teams would love to have on their team, where they could grow, build, a guy that has immense talent on both sides of the court, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't seemed to work out there between the head coach Steve Kerr, and maybe even the front office for that matter, with the GM and the ownership. So he's another guy that you're going to have to think about when it comes to the deadline, to where any of these guys get traded or even worth the risk of trading for when you try to change your team, the outlook, the talent, etc., and maybe make some hay in whatever conference that the player does get traded to. So that will all, of course, have to wait and see. But as far as overall with the sport, I mean, what can I tell you, people? There isn't a lot. I know Devin Booker's now out a week with an ankle sprain, so we'll have to wait and see with him. Derrick Rose gets his jersey retired, number 1 to the rafters in Chicago, and a lot of people have come out and said, oh, he means more to Chicago than MJ did. Well, it only makes sense because Derrick Rose is from Chicago, number 1, so he's almost the prodigal son, considering that he did win an MVP there early on in his career and had success before he blew out his knee in that opening round, 6-0 game 1, where he was in the game late and had a double-digit lead, as you know. You've heard the story and seen it, the highlights, etc. And we know Jordan is Jordan. I get it, but he's not from Chicago, and obviously you're almost 2 generations removed. Not to say he's not revered in Chicago, but a lot of people are going to be a lot closer to Derrick Rose because fan base, obviously it's a little bit more recency bias, despite the fact that he hasn't played it in a Bull uniform forever. But congratulations to him as he gets his number raised to the rafters there at the United Center. But with the standings, let's see what we got there. Raptors have played well as they actually have overtaken the Knicks by, and they got how many games in hand? Oh, 3 games in hand. So the Knicks have 3 games in hand, even though the Raptors are now 3rd in the East as they played well here. Besides that, I'm not going to pay attention to 7 through 10 right now. It's not as if anybody's really distinguished themselves there. Out West, Thunder with a sizable lead, 5.5. Same is said for the East with the Pistons and Celtics. Clippers trying to get to 500. They're 3 back. And remember, at one point, weren't they 8 and, what was their record? 8 and 21? And they've been on a tear, so give it up to them as to them rebounding in a big way. The T-Wolves have lost 5 in a row. That isn't good as they've dropped now into the 7th seed. But that's what you have there with the association as far as the standings go. And as far as the schedule, what you got tonight on Peacock, not on NBC, 3 games, Orlando at Cleveland, Portland at Boston, and Golden State at Minnesota. And obviously that is a situation where they had a 2-game series in Minnesota. Now, it was supposed to play Saturday, got postponed because of the shooting there, as you well know, and just a horrific story, no matter how you slice it. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, that is just abominable. It's not right. To me, it is a matter of right and wrong. And what happened there in Minneapolis, and this isn't even including what happened with Renee Good, but to just think that this, as awful as a story you could even get. And I don't care. Again, to me, this isn't political, left, right, nonsense. It was wrong and horrific in a zillion ways and a zillion and one to Sunday. So they had to postpone the game Saturday because of this, and good for the NBA for doing so. So they played the game yesterday, and the T-Wolves lost at home and got beaten badly by the Warriors. So they're going to play the second game there tonight. Then you have tomorrow, Milwaukee at Philly on NBC and Peacock. The Clippers in Utah, the same. Sacramento, New York. New Orleans at Oklahoma City. Detroit at Denver, that's a pretty good game there. Brooklyn at Phoenix. That is your Tuesday schedule. And then Wednesday, you have LeBron going back to Cleveland yet again. That's on ESPN, 7 o'clock, followed by San Antonio at Houston. And in between, you have Orlando, Miami, New York at Toronto, Minnesota, Dallas, Golden State, Utah, Atlanta at Boston, Chicago, Indiana. And so that's pretty much a schedule there for the NBA. There for not for the remainder of the week, but up until Thursday when we reconnect then. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the ice as I lace up the skates. And again, not much to be said there. I mean, other than Mitch Marner, you had a lot of returns here in sports, especially in the NHL, where you had Jonathan Toews, the former Blackhawk captain, go back to the United Center, as we just talked about that with D. Rose, and how he got a rousing ovation, 4-minute standing ovation. Not the same for Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner, a lot of people thought was the poster child or maybe even the scapegoat for ineptitude, especially when you get to the postseason. As he skated during warm-ups, got a lot of boos, and when he touched the puck, got a lot of boos. But during the video tribute, he got a few cheers, and then later on in the game, got even more cheers. So he was certainly off with the mixed signals. But anyway, he went to Toronto. They won 6-3. Got a couple of assists in the prior game when they played out in the desert. But for the reunion, that's what you had there. But to me, with the Olympics being in the next 10, 11 days, I believe the lighting of the torch will be next Friday, but the NHL will go on break. And I understand I can talk about this next week or even on Thursday's podcast, but I just thought to throw this out here pretty much as a warning shot because the NHL right now, as they're prepping for the players to be gone over the course of, 17 days, and the schedule's going to take a big pause, and we've seen this before in the past, but I wonder how tough it is for teams that have played well this year, that have been whether above expectations or right around expectations. Does the 2-week break, is it something that's welcoming? Or is it a bit of I don't want to say nuisance, that's a little bit too strong, but is it a thing where, wow, now they're taking too much time off, is it going to be that much harder to get back into the swing of things? I understand you have a ton of NHL players from all the regions that are going to play out in Italy, I believe in Milan. That's how, I think it's in Milan, where the Olympics are going to be not only broadcasted on NBC, but also played there for the 17-day period. But it'll be interesting to hear. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of the takes from players, coaches, etc., as to how this is going to pan out here as they get prepped. And again, they still have games between now and next Thursday. I think next Thursday is the last day in the schedule before they break. Now, I don't know if they're going to make it for the ceremony. Maybe they do. Some may do, some won't. But you'll have that, and the hockey will begin, I guess, soon thereafter. So we will see how the NHL is going to, and the players are going to handle that. Besides that, I'm sorry, people, NHL, I mean, what can I tell you? Standing-wise, everything is pretty much status quo. I know the Penguins are now overtaking the Islanders there for second place in the Metropolitan. They're 4 points ahead of them. And you have Utah's playing well as they try to inch closer to the Minnesota Wild, who have actually overtaken Dallas for second place in the Central. And they're 11 points back in Colorado. They're probably going to go off and hide, at least you would think. Then you have Vegas, who currently has a 2-point lead over Edmonton, 3 over Anaheim, as Anaheim's now won 7 in a row, so they've certainly been the hottest team in the sport right now. But that's what you have in the NHL. There isn't a lot that's gone on there that's going to make you think, whether it's games, and we know with the long regular season, there are only going to be just a handful of games that you're going to pay attention to, or at least it will stick out and be like, wow, that was an excellent game or matchup, etc. And as we look at the schedule, this is what we have. Utah, Tampa tonight, Boston at New York, Islanders in Philadelphia, Anaheim and Edmonton, and that was yesterday's game. The Kings in Columbus. I guess maybe because of the snowstorm, they're going to postpone that game. Don't know when it's going to be rescheduled because the Kings play in Detroit tomorrow night. So I'm sure they'll make that game up somewhere along the way. Tomorrow, Nashville at Boston, Buffalo at Toronto, Vegas at Montreal. Utah, Florida. Obviously, they're taking their trip there down south. Winnipeg at Jersey. Dallas at St. Louis. Chicago, Minnesota, San Jose, Vancouver, Washington, and Seattle. And then you have Wednesday, Islanders they're hosting the Rangers. Philly at Columbus. Colorado at Ottawa. And the Philly-Columbus game is on TNT. That is your schedule for the NHL as we get closer to the Olympic break and obviously the month of February. All right, now let me turn my attention to what is happening down under. That's right, as I'm just over here trying to get to these tabs here. Looking at what's happening here real quick. As far as the goings-on in Melbourne, is there a tournament that's happening there? Is the first Grand Slam of the tennis year? I mean, other than the handshake between Naomi Osaka and Sarana, can't think of her last name off the top of my head. And then Osaka had to withdraw from her third round match due to an injury, which she didn't disclose. So that was unfortunate. We couldn't see her go of any length here at the Aussie. So hopefully we'll get to see her down or out in Paris for the French, which will be in the middle to latter part of May. So that was a tough break on the women's side. But besides that, I mean, what have you gotten there at the Australian Open? I mean, it has really been crickets. You haven't had anything to sink your teeth into. I know if you want to say the defending champ Madison Keys on the women's side lost to Jessica Pegula in straight sets. And Pegula was ranked, 6th in the world and Keys 9th. I mean, that's not really a big-time upset. Both are about their equal. I know Madison Keys won last year as Pegula's trying to get to. And, of course, Jessica Pegula is the daughter of Terry Pegula, the owner of the Buffalo Bills. I know she's trying to get to a semi and even a final for her to win. But that's really all you've had. Everybody has won who we expected to win, whether it's the Yannick Sinners of the world, Carlos Alcaraz's, the Amanda Anisimovas, the Coco Gauffs, the Iga Swiatek's, the Arina Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina. I mean, going down the list. Novak Djokovic, it's been chalk. And that's fine because that means you're going to get competitive tennis here in the second week of the tournament. And hopefully we get some because I got news for you. There hasn't been, other than the Stan Wawrinka 5-set, 4-hour marathon match that he had, you haven't had a lot of the thrilling, for sure, upsetting tennis or anything of the like. So you'd only think that this second week should be on and popping to the point where we're going to have those nail-biting 5-set matches or 3-set matches on the women's side. I mean, you can only hope for it because right now it has been a dud down under at the Australian Open. I got nothing else to report. That's what you have. And with the baseball, as I turn my attention there, as I put the racket away and lace up the cleats, you had a couple of signings in a trade where Mackenzie Gore, now how he got traded for 5 players beyond me, because I get it that his upside is still good, and I believe he made an all-star team 2 years ago, and certainly, or maybe the first half of last year. Did he make the all-star team with the Nationals? But they got 5 players for him, so maybe they thought, and I believe he still has another year, a year for sure. He may have 2 years left before he becomes a free agent. So kudos to the Nationals, and maybe not for the rest of the NL East for that matter down the road. But 5 players to shore up that rotation with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi, and they get a good left-hander there. Although wildly inconsistent, but a lot of upside there with the young lefty. So Gore goes to Texas, and then you had Jose Ramirez extended, where his contract was up after the 28 season, but they tack on more years to make it a 5-year, no, as a matter of fact, I lied, 7 years, $175 million deal. So Jose Ramirez will end his career. He's 32 years of age and now. And it's interesting. Remember we were talking about the Hall of Fame last week, and I got to bring this up. I understand Ramirez does not have a lot of black type behind his name. And we know in their Ring of Honor out in Cleveland, to go along with the likes of maybe, Jim Tomei, and you want to even go back, Herb Scorer, and Andre Thornton, and players, maybe even Albert Bell. I'm sure he's in the Ring of Honor there. But Bob Feller. But I got news for you. I was looking at his stats there yesterday. Now, I understand he's 283 lifetime right now, 285 home runs. He should get the 400 home runs, which will be the new 500. But here's the one thing that's going to stick out with me. I get it. He has black type, runs scored. That was in the pandemic year, 45 runs. So, can't really count that. 1 year he had 56 doubles and 44 twice. Has not led in homers, RBIs, batting average, OPS, on base, slugging, etc. But here's the thing that sticks out. In a league that had Shohei Ohtani for many years and Aaron Judge, he has been, going back to 2017, and that was Judge's rookie year, I might add. So he went up against Jose Altuve. Since 2017, do you know that Jose Ramirez, who you couldn't pick out of a lineup unless you're a big baseball fan, he has finished in the top 5 in MVP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and was in the top 3 in MVP 1, 2, 3, 4 times. All right, he was third 3 times and was second 1 time. And if you want to say top 10, again, I said top 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Top 10, he was 6th in the MVP in 2021 and was 10th in the MVP in 2023. So he has 8 top 10 MVP votes. If you're getting that amount of pub from the baseball writers, that guy's a Hall of Famer. Andrew Jones, I believe, had 2 top 10 MVP. Top 10! Not top 5, top 10. And he was top 2 or top 3 once. Ramirez has done that 6 times in the top 5. 3, 3, 2, 5, and 3. No, he did it 5 times. 4th. I mean, the guy, come on. So I just thought to throw that out there for those who are probably thinking that, oh, is Jose Ramirez a Hall of Famer? He's going to be a Hall of Famer, whether you think so or not. And then Sir Anthony Dominguez signed a 2-year, $20 million contract with the White Sox. So they shore up their bullpen. And it made some sneaky moves this offseason. And somebody even asked me, the White Sox, do you think they're going to be a 500 team? I think they'll be a smidge below that. But considering 2 years ago they won 41 games, and last year they were, right around 60 or above? Man, they should get to low to mid-70s this year. And maybe next year they'll make some hay and get to 500 and above. That's how I look at the White Sox. But baseball, that's what you have there. Obviously, things have quieted down after the activity last week that we saw with Bellinger and the Mets trading for the likes of a new starting pitcher and a one Freddie Peralta, as well as Luis Robert Jr. from the aforementioned Pale Hose, the White Sox, that is. So baseball should probably quiet down a little bit, although you still have a couple of free agents there. Zach Gallen, Framber Valdez, who I think nobody trusts after the cross-up of the home plate, the catcher behind home plate that one time. He hasn't signed on the dotted line. If you think Eugenio Suarez is a guy that you want to ink to your team, he's still out there too. Pitchers and catchers, people, 2 weeks from this Wednesday is when they report. So baseball will pretty much be part of our consciousness very soon, although games are still, I believe, 2 months from today, if I'm not mistaken, is when the baseball season begins, March 26th. As you know, do not want to rush time, but I'll be waiting with wide open arms. That'll do it, my good people. Another episode just on the books, as always. Thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the toy department of life called sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at JAYREELZ. I just surpassed 1,000 subscribers about 10 days ago, and now I want to get to 2,000, 5, 10, 50, 100, and beyond. So if you hit that subscribe button, with your help, I promise you, with my heart and hustle, I'll pump out content on a daily basis. And not only just my daily shorts talking about what's happening in the sports world, but also 2 podcasts a week, 3 live streams a week. I didn't put one this week or this morning, but I'm thinking about doing one later this afternoon, so stay tuned for that. As well as vlogs. My 4-part series, docuseries, part 2 came up yesterday. A father, son, and the Steelers Super Bowl 40 run. Definitely check that out. Hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. As well as Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Throw me a few stars, write a review there. And if you want to take a screenshot of any of my work and send it to me on my socials at Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast, or on Instagram, just JAYREELZ. Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just the number. Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just the number. And the old-fashioned way, the JAYREELZ Podcast at gmail.com. Hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals. Because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA. Chopping at the bit. Always to put out these podcasts twice a week, every Monday and Thursday. The live stream Wednesday on YouTube, high noon Eastern time. Join me, my usual suspects, and more. Open invite to be a part of it. Be a part of the discussion. We could debate. agree, disagree, banter back and forth. That's what it's for, as well as the podcast pre-games Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. and vlogs, all the type of videos you could ever imagine that a content creator like me who loves sports, like sports, is a kook over sports. And as I always like to say, in the blood, in the DNA since birth, because as long as I sit in front of this microphone and camera, I promise I'll deliver nothing but fire, passion, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the water, the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx to South Beach to South Central to South Pacific and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ podcast, on the flip, baby.